The old man didn't flinch when they laughed at him. That was the part nobody could explain afterward. Not the mechanic who'd been watching from the side bay, not the parts counter kid who pretended to be busy with his clipboard. Nobody could explain how a man who'd just been mocked in front of a full waiting room could stand there with his hands at his sides and his face completely still, like he'd heard worse things in worse places, and this barely registered. His name was August Greer, 79 years old. He drove a '94 Chevy pickup that he kept immaculate, and he'd pulled into Harlan County Auto and Service that Thursday morning because the truck had started making a sound he didn't like. A low knock from somewhere deep in the engine that showed up only when the temperature dropped below 40. He'd driven it for 31 years. He knew every sound it made, and this one was new. The waiting room smelled like burnt coffee and tire rubber. A mounted television in the corner was running a cable news loop that nobody watched. 3 plastic chairs along the wall. A vending machine with a broken selection button for the peanut butter crackers. August Greer took a seat and waited, the way he'd spent a significant portion of his life waiting. Without complaint, without theatre, without needing anyone to notice him doing it. The service desk was staffed by 2 men whose combined age probably didn't reach his. The one on the left, whose name badge read Cole, had the kind of confidence that comes not from earning anything, but from never being seriously corrected. The other one, Jason, was quieter but not better, the kind of quiet that's just waiting for someone else to start something first. It was Cole who came to the counter when August Greer walked up. "What can I do for you, Pop?" Cole said it casually, the way you say something when you've already decided what category the person in front of you belongs to. August Greer put his keys on the counter. "Engine knock," he said. "Shows up cold. Low RT. Could be the lifters, but I don't think so. Sounds more like rod bearing to me." Cole looked at the keys for a second. Then he looked at the old man. Then he looked back at Jason and smiled just slightly, the way guys do when they want someone else to be in on something. "Rod bearing," Cole said. He said it the way you repeat something back when you're deciding whether to take it seriously. "You sure it's not just old age?" Jason made a sound from behind the counter. Not quite a laugh, something just beneath that. "I mean, no offense," Cole continued, picking up the keys now, "but sometimes older vehicles just start making noises, especially when there's been a lot of wear on everything." He paused. "Might just be time to let her go, you know." August Greer looked at him steadily. "The truck is 31 years old," he said. "So am I aware of what age does to things. Yes, the knock is intermittent. It's not a tick, it's a knock. There's a difference. I'd appreciate it if somebody would put it on the lift and take a look." "Yeah, sure," Cole said. He typed something into the computer. Then, not quite under his breath, but definitely not meant for the old man, "Jason, you want to check in a vintage vehicle for our vintage customer here?" Jason took the keys. "What year's the Chevy '94? "Man," Jason said, and shook his head slowly, and smiled. "My grandfather had one of those." Neither of them said anything else directly. They didn't have to. There was a language they were speaking that wasn't words. The small pauses, the tilted heads, the way Cole turned back to whatever was on his screen like the conversation was already over. The 2 guys in the waiting room heard it. The mechanic in the side bay heard it. August Greer heard it. He went and sat back down. He picked up a magazine from 2023 and turned the pages without reading them. Outside, through the plate glass window, he could see his truck sitting in the lot. A light rain had started. He watched the drops run down the windshield and thought about nothing in particular, which was something he'd gotten very good at over the years. The man who came in from the back an hour later was named Dale Whitmore, and he owned Harlan County Auto and Service, and he had not been there that morning because he'd been at a funeral. His uncle, 78 years old, Korean War veteran, passed quietly in a VA hospital bed in Lexington with a flag on his chest and a box of photographs on the nightstand. Dale Whitmore had driven 2 hours each way and stood in the rain at the graveside in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore, and he'd driven back without stopping because there was a shop to run and employees who needed managing and a Thursday that was still going to happen whether he wanted it to or not. He came through the back door still in his good pants with the jacket over his arm, and he went straight to the office to put his things down, and then he walked out to the service floor to check in. The first thing he noticed was Cole laughing. The second thing he noticed was what Cole was laughing at. There was a security camera mounted in the corner of the waiting room, had been there for 2 years. mostly to catch the occasional snatch and grab at the parts counter. Dale Whitmore had a monitor on his desk that he never watched, but that recorded everything. He hadn't watched it yet that morning, but he didn't need to. He could see the waiting room from the doorway to the service floor. He could see the old man with the magazine. He could see Cole at the counter, doing the thing with his shoulders that he did when he thought something was funny. Dale Whitmore stood there for a moment. Then he walked to the counter. "Cole," he said. Cole turned around. "Hey, boss. You're back early. Who's the gentleman in the waiting room?" "Oh, he brought in a '94 Chevy, engine knock. I got Jason to write it up. Go get him." Cole blinked. "What? Go bring him up here. I want to talk to him before we start on the vehicle." Cole went. He wasn't sure why the tone had shifted, but something in Dale's face made him move without asking more questions. August Greer came to the counter. He had the magazine in his hand, still marked at a page he hadn't been reading. Dale Whitmore extended his hand. "August Greer? That's right. Dale Whitmore. I own this place. I'm sorry I wasn't here when you came in." He paused. "I want to make sure you're being taken care of properly." August Greer looked at him for a moment. "I'm fine," he said. "Just waiting on the truck, I know. I want you to sit down somewhere better than that." He gestured to the small office off the service floor, the one with the actual upholstered chair, the one Dale used for insurance discussions and customer complaints. "Can I get you coffee?" "Real coffee, not whatever's in that machine out there." "You don't have to do that." "I know I don't," Dale said. "I want to." There was something in the way he said it that made August Greer look at him more carefully. Not the way a customer looks at an owner running interference. Something else. "I just got back from a funeral," Dale said. He wasn't sure why he was telling the old man this, it just came out. "My uncle, he was 78, served in Korea, came home and opened a hardware store and never talked about any of it." He stopped. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this." "I don't mind," August Greer said. They stood there for a second. "What branch?" August Greer asked. "Army, 7th Infantry Division. He was at Heartbreak Ridge." August Greer was quiet. Then he said, "Long fight." Dale cleared his throat. "Did you serve?" There was a pause. The kind of pause that isn't uncertainty. It's just a man deciding how much to say. "Marines," August said. "Long time ago." He didn't say anything else. Dale didn't push. He brought the old man back to his office and poured him coffee from the actual drip pot he kept on the shelf, and he excused himself for a few minutes, and he went and found Cole. He found him in the second bay, pretending to look at an invoice. "Walk with me," Dale said. They walked to the far end of the service floor, past the lift, past the oil drum rack, past the wall where the ACA certifications hung in frames that hadn't been dusted since Christmas. "Tell me what happened this morning," Dale said. "Before I got here." Cole shrugged. "Nothing happened. Old guy came in. Brought in a Chevy. We wrote it up." "What did you say to him?" Another shrug. "Just being friendly. I've got a camera in that waiting room," Dale said. Cole said nothing. "You've been here 2 years," Dale continued. "You know your stuff. You're good on the floor. But what you did this morning, whatever it was, that stops today. Not because I'm telling you to be nice, because it's wrong. Because that man sat in our waiting room and was made to feel like he didn't deserve to be here, and that is not what we do." He paused. "You understand me?" "Yeah," Cole said. Quieter now. He brought in a '94 Chevy with an intermittent engine knock that he diagnosed himself as a probable rod-bearing issue. "Before you get back on that vehicle, I want you to think about whether you gave him the same credit you'd give a guy in his 40s walking in here with the same information. And I want you to be honest with yourself about the answer." Cole didn't say anything. Dale went back to his office. August Greer was sitting in the upholstered chair, holding his coffee, looking at the photograph on the wall, the one of Dale's uncle in his army greens, 1952, standing in front of a tent somewhere in the mountains of Korea, squinting into the sun with the particular expression of someone who doesn't know the photograph is being taken. "That him?" August asked. "Yeah," Dale said. "Uncle Thomas. That was taken about 3 months before Heartbreak." August Greer looked at it for a while. "He make it through?" "He did. Came home in 53. 47 years in hardware. Married the same woman for 52 years. Coached Little League until he was 73. Dale sat down across from him. "He never once talked about Korea. Not to my dad, not to me, not to anybody in the family that I know of." August Greer nodded slowly. "Some of us don't," he said. "It's not because it didn't matter." "I know," Dale said. "I think I always knew that. I just wish I'd told him that I knew." There was a long quiet. "What unit?" August Greer asked. "31st Infantry Regiment." Something moved in August Greer's expression. Something very small. "Good unit," he said. They sat together in the small office while the rain came down outside and the shop noise moved around them. Impact wrenches and air compressors, and the low radio someone kept on near the alignment bay. Nobody bothered them. Whatever Dale had communicated to his staff when he came in that morning had gotten through. It was 20 minutes later, when Dale had stepped out to take a call, that Jason knocked on the open door. He was holding a clipboard and he looked uncomfortable, which meant he was probably doing the right thing. "Mr. Greer," he said. August looked up. "I just wanted to say—" He stopped, started over. "I wanted to apologize. For earlier, we were out of line." August Greer looked at him for a long moment, not hard, just measuring. "Apology accepted," he said. Jason nodded. He looked like he wanted to say something else, the way people do when they've rehearsed something, and then realize the rehearsed version isn't quite right. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "You served?" "Yes." "Where?" August Greer was quiet for a moment. "Vietnam," he said. 71, 72. And before that, the Dominican Republic, 65. He said it the same way he'd say the make and model of a truck. Just information. And 2 more tours I'm not going to go into. Jason looked like he'd expected the answer, and also like it hit him differently than he'd expected it to. "I'm sorry," Jason said, "for what I said this morning." "You already apologized," August told him. "You don't have to do it twice." Jason nodded. He stood there another second. "Cole found the rod bearing," he said. "You were right. Lower end, driver's side. He said to tell you." A pause. "He said it was a good call." August Greer looked out the window at the rain. "Thank you," he said. What none of them knew, not Cole, not Jason, not the mechanic in the side bay who'd watched the whole thing from a careful distance, was that August Greer had spent 26 years in the United States Marine Corps and had retired as a master gunnery sergeant in 1993, that he had served in 4 conflicts across 3 decades, that in April of 1972, outside of An Loc in Bin Long Province, he had pulled 2 wounded Marines out of a burning vehicle under fire, one of whom had been pinned under the door and had gone back twice, and had been awarded a Silver Star that he kept in a shoebox on the top shelf of his bedroom closet, underneath a folded flag and some letters he didn't read anymore, that he had driven the same truck for 31 years, because he believed things should be maintained and respected, and because the truck had never let him down, that he lived alone in a farmhouse 12 miles outside of town, and kept a garden that had been started by his late wife, Margaret, and that he maintained it not because he particularly loved gardening, but because she had, and he hadn't been ready to let it go. That on his worst mornings, and there were still bad mornings, even at 79, he went out to the garden before anything else, before coffee even, and he stood in the rows of whatever was growing, and he breathed, and he came back. That was the man who had sat in the plastic chair in the waiting room of Harlan County Auto and Service and been told he might want to look into a medical alert button. None of them knew. He didn't tell them. He never told anyone. The truck was done by mid-afternoon. Cole came to find him personally with the paperwork. Not Jason, Cole, and he stood across the counter and gave the rundown with the same technical precision he used with everyone, but without the commentary, without the tilted head. Just the work. "Rod bearing, driver's side, lower end," Cole said. "Replace the bearing in the journal. While we were in there we found some wear on the main bearing surface, so we addressed that too. She's going to run clean." August Greer read the invoice. "Good work," he said. He paid and signed and took his keys. He was almost to the door when Dale Whitmore came out from the back. "Mr. Greer." August turned. Dale extended his hand again. "Thank you for your patience today and for your service." He paused. "I mean that." August Greer shook his hand. "You raised decent people," he said. "Even the ones that take a minute." He pushed through the door. The rain had stopped sometime in the last hour. The parking lot was wet, and the sky had that thin grey quality that comes right after weather moves through, where the light is strange and everything is a little sharper than usual. August Greer walked to his truck, opened the door, and sat for a moment before starting the engine. He turned the key. The engine came up clean, no knock, nothing from the lower end, just the steady, even idle of a well-maintained machine. He sat with it for a moment. He thought about Dale Whitmore's uncle, Thomas, standing in the Korean mountains in 1952 with the sun in his eyes, not knowing a photograph was being taken. He thought about the way Dale had said, "I wish I'd told him." He thought about the things you carry a long time before you realize you needed to put them down, and the things you carry forever because putting them down would mean something you're not ready to mean. He put the truck in gear and pulled out of the lot. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday in early December, there was an envelope in Dale Whitmore's mailbox at the shop. Inside was a photograph. It was black and white. A group of Marines in the field, somewhere green and dense, Southeast Asia, clearly. Hard to say exactly where, hard to say exactly when. In the center of the frame stood a young man, maybe 25, with a rifle over one shoulder and a look on his face that was the same look Dale had seen in the Korean photograph. Not posed, not performative. Just a man standing in a place, aware of where he was, not thinking about how he looked. On the back, in a neat, firm hand. For the man who keeps the photo on his wall. Tell them where we've been. A.G. Dale framed it. He hung it next to Thomas, two old soldiers who never met, decades and oceans apart, standing in the places that made them, not looking at the camera. The shop got a little quieter after that. Nothing dramatic. Just the way places get when something true has passed through them. Cole was different. Not changed exactly, but different. More careful with his words, more willing to listen before he spoke. Whether it lasted, Dale couldn't say. These things sometimes do and sometimes don't. What lasted was the photograph. What lasted was the envelope arriving on a Saturday, unsolicited, no return address. What lasted was the understanding, and Dale turned this over many times in the months afterward, alone in his office with his coffee, that the man in the waiting room had known, even while being mocked, exactly who he was. That the mockery had not touched that. That some things are simply too deep in a person to be reached by whatever a 22-year-old behind a service counter decides to say on a Thursday morning. That's who August Greer was. He never came back to the shop. His truck didn't need him to. But on the first Saturday of every March, without fail, an envelope arrived. Inside, always a photograph. Never labelled, never explained. Dale kept everyone.